Welcome back to Director's Choice. Life imitates art, or so the philosophy goes. But what happens when art imitates life? It's not always pretty, but it always has a way of resonating with us, and perhaps that's the secret to some of the greatest success in the world. Many of the television shows that we love have a layer of truth to them that can barely be seen by the naked eye. Something deep and meaningful that has been there the whole time, but we never noticed because we were too busy enjoying the show that we love. These things are all around us. Every day, we see something that seems simple on the surface, and maybe we've seen it so many times that we never give it a second thought. But there is something special permeating into our subconscious, and we feel that every time we see it. We cannot always put a finger on exactly what it is that makes us feel this way, but we know that it exists because of the deep sentiment we have towards it. Some shows have a superficial first layer that we never see past, but that's a good thing, because if we could see the truth underneath, revealing the true meanings of some of our most treasured moments in television, it would be traumatizing. That thin layer between reality and the truth exists not to keep us in the dark, but to protect us from a dark truth that could suck the fun out of what we love the most. Without looking close, it's impossible to tell the true meaning. But then again, you might not want to look too closely. It might be more important to just appreciate them while you have them and simply let yourself get lost in them. Not every layer needs to be explored to find a deeper meaning, because as you peel back the layers, you might find that you don't like what you see. More often than not, a disturbing truth proves to be the origin of the things that we love the most. And if we spend time dissecting what we love the most, that love might turn cold, or turn into a morbid curiosity for the reason things are the way that they are. At its core, SpongeBob SquarePants is a rare gem of pure joy that radiates happiness and puts smiles on all our faces. Not just when we were growing up, but thinking back to the fond memories that we have of tuning in as adults warms our hearts. However, the truth about what exists just beneath the surface of one of the most beloved animated shows of all time is far more sinister. The reality is that SpongeBob SquarePants is a show where the characters are the result of nuclear waste. It doesn't sound so bad to imagine a show where Bikini Bottom and all its inhabitants are alive because of nuclear energy. But when you learn the truth about how the idea of Bikini Bottom came to be, you'll understand that sometimes the truth is a tough pill to swallow. And while sometimes art imitates life, that's not always a good thing. Today, we're going to explain how we know for a fact that SpongeBob SquarePants characters are the result of nuclear waste. In order to better explain exactly how we know that SpongeBob is the result of nuclear waste, we have to start at the beginning and the not-so-humble origins of the show. First and foremost, we know for a fact that Bikini Bottom is a real place because there is a Bikini Top. The small island that is directly above Bikini Bottom, known as Bikini Atoll, is a real place where some very unpleasant things happened way before SpongeBob adorned his SquarePants and a passion for Krabby Patties. Bikini Atoll is a small island in the Pacific Ocean that belongs to a chain of islands known as the Marshall Islands. Things were peaceful on the island for centuries until the US executed what was known as Operation Crossroads. During the 1940s, the US evacuated all inhabitants of the island and began testing nuclear weapons on and around the island to enhance their nuclear capabilities. During the first test, several ships were detonated, but what would eventually become the catalyst for the creation of the SpongeBob SquarePants universe is the bomb known as Baker. Baker was a nuclear bomb detonated 90 feet underwater in 1946 and caused massive levels of contamination as a result that are still high today. Today, the radiation levels of Bikini Atoll remain 10 times higher than Chernobyl. It could seem like a strange coincidence or some oversight on the part of the show's creators. Perhaps it is an example of parallel thinking, except that the creators have given us clue after clue, proving without a shadow of a doubt that the characters all originated as a result of this explosion. maybe one of the most compelling pieces of evidence comes to us early on in Season 2 of SpongeBob, in the episode titled, Dying for Pie. The employees of the Krusty Krab are required to exchange gifts. Squidward accidentally buys SpongeBob a bomb that is disguised as a pie, and SpongeBob eats the pie before he can be warned of the danger. Convinced that SpongeBob is going to die, Squidward does everything he can to make SpongeBob's last moments on Earth everything he could ever wish for. But SpongeBob reveals that he never ate the pie and was saving it to eat with Squidward. On his way, he trips on a rock, dropping the pie and setting off a massive explosion that can be seen reaching far above the water. The footage used in that episode to capture the magnitude of the explosion is the actual footage of the Baker nuclear bomb detonated underwater near Bikini Atoll. This explosion formed what we know now as Bikini Bottom, but also created many of the other interesting places that the characters visit in the show. For example, the crater left by the large underwater explosion formed the bizarre town that SpongeBob visits, known as Rock Bottom, where everything is just a little more peculiar, closer to the site of the detonation. By using actual footage from the bomb tests, the creators have left no room for doubt as to the actual origins of the nuclear characters in SpongeBob's underwater world. Now that we know that the explosion from the Baker nuclear bomb forced the creation of Bikini Bottom, it's important to look into some of the colorful characters in Bikini Bottom and examine exactly how the radiation affected them. The creators have dropped several Easter eggs along the way to steer viewers in the right direction, whether they choose to see the truth or not. When we examine the nature of the characters and the show as a whole, we come to find out that Bikini Bottom exists in a time capsule that resembles the year the nuclear incident transformed the calm marine life into a walking and talking advanced civilization. When we look at the attire and behavior of the characters, they resemble a civilization that existed in the 1940s, more than any current era that the show has existed in. SpongeBob's outfit, for example, looks more like something you would find in a 1940s sitcom than a kids' TV show in the early 2000s. The creators of the show wanted to best exemplify what it might be like if a civilization popped up underwater in the 1940s. But not much changed after that, because of the lack of contact with the outside world. Everything done in the show was deliberate, and every character planned carefully to create a map of events that took place creating Bikini Bottom. And lovable southern squirrel friend Sandy Cheeks is an obvious illustration when digging a little bit deeper into the annals of history. Sandy Cheeks seems a bit out of place in the underwater world of Bikini Bottom, living in the safety of her tree dome. What we didn't know at first is that it's no accident that Sandy is in the show, and most of her origin helps to explain her reason for being in Bikini Bottom. Sandy makes it well known that she's from Texas, and often expresses how much Texas means to her. She even longs to return to Texas from time to time. But Texas is the entire reason that this super intelligent scientist squirrel is in Bikini Bottom in the first place. There is a plant that produces nuclear weapons in the United States called Pantex, and they are one of a kind because they are the only place in the US that produces nuclear weapons. It was formed in 1942 as a plant to produce conventional bombs, but would eventually become the sole site of nuclear weapons creation in the US, and it's in, you guessed it, Texas. Sandy the Squirrel is a highly intelligent scientist who happens to be from Texas, the site of all nuclear weapon production in the US, and she appeared in Bikini Bottom shortly after the nuclear bomb was dropped, turning Bikini Bottom into the thriving sentient metropolis that we know and love today. Much of Sandy's more obscure behavior can also be explained by exposure to radiation from the nuclear waste. In the Season 2 episode called Pre-Hibernation Week, Sandy is woken from her hibernation, turning her into a bloodthirsty monster who desires only destruction. A departure from her normally relaxed attitude. This outburst can be explained only by understanding the effects that radiation exposure has on the submerged squirrel. Sandy Cheeks was put in the show on purpose to explain a greater underlying theme, proving again that nothing included in SpongeBob SquarePants is put there on accident. Now that we know that SpongeBob SquarePants is the result of nuclear waste, what does it all mean? More importantly, does knowing that SpongeBob SquarePants is really based on a nuclear testing site change the way that we think about a show that brings us so much joy? It's a complicated question, and there really are no simple answers or shortcuts. Everyone is different when they process information that is different to their current understanding of the way the world works. The bottom line is that SpongeBob is a show about hope more than anything else. From the pits of despair and evil caused by irresponsible nuclear testing, we were able to create something as wonderful as SpongeBob SquarePants. It might not seem like a lot for the heavy price paid as a result of the nuclear waste, but the laughs and pleasure that come from the show carry a weight now. It's an important show and an example of turning lemons into lemonade, or nuclear bombs into hilarious television, whether we realized it at the time or not. Sometimes art imitates life, but when we look closer at something like SpongeBob SquarePants, that is not always a bad thing. Thanks for watching. Take a look at this other recent clip by Director's Choice and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified with our latest videos.